One of the critical aspects of talent that is all too often is ignored, or even worse yet, is kind of talked about it, but just from a lip service perspective. Let's talk about culture. Let's talk about core values. And sometimes companies don't really live up to those core values or their culture when things get difficult, when legislation changes or clients change or people are reacting because perhaps EBITDA is not where we need it to be this month, or our top line growth is not where we need it to be. And the reality is, one of the things that you really need to always remember to do, and I'm saying this not only as a company, because I run one and I've been in Fortune 50 companies as an employee, but also as a search firm, is you need to learn to eschew the wrong and do what is right. What I mean by that is you cannot take the shortcut. You cannot ignore the culture or the core values. You cannot put that second to perhaps that shiny penny or that great candidate on paper that may be coming before you, or you have an amazing opportunity from a sales perspective. My goodness, even running a search firm, I made that mistake myself 12 years ago, where I had an opportunity to take on a client, that was one of 17 companies within the US with a Japanese parent. And all I saw was getting those 17 companies. And I saw short-term response. We were a relatively new business. And in going after that business, I forgot my own core values. I forgot my own culture that I was really trying to drive to get that business. I didn't fire my own process in hiring somebody, and it failed miserably. Now, we did wind up meeting the expectations of that singular company, of the 17 companies within the US. But in chasing that top line growth and not taking a breath and stopping and remembering why I chose to do what we do and why our process was to be different, I ignored it because I had green eye shades on and I saw things that I wanted to see and not things that I needed to see. And it cost us a long-term client. It's a long-term revenue. So as a search firm, when we talk to clients, I learned at that very moment, it was not only about doing something differently. It was not only about focusing on our own culture and being true to who we were and what we believed in, but it was taking the time with the clients up front and making sure that we understood what their culture truly was. What were their core values, not just lifting it off the website, but taking the time and helping to understand exactly what they mean with those core values, understanding and digging into what's keeping you up at night. What is it that concerns you? How can we bring the right talent in to make a difference? Because the right talent will make the difference in the organization. And how can we bring that talent in to make sure that we're continuing to shore up and respond to the core values that you want to drive your culture in the organization? And how can we look a little deeper and peel the onion back more by not only understanding that with the client, but when we talk to candidates? And I encourage this to anyone who is going to go after talent, whether it is a company, whether it is their internal recruiting team, whether it is a staffing firm or one of the many versions of recruiting or search firms out there, is really focus on that culture and those core values and take the extra time to, when you talk to candidates, in order to deliver that right talent, you want to understand what are they going to bring not only for this role, but do you see the positive affectivity they're going to bring to an organization, not only in the role in front of us, but in perhaps being promotability 2 roles ahead. I learned from a CHRO who has been a client of ours as she has moved through her career in 4 separate companies over the last 20 years, where each has been a exponentially larger company from a revenue perspective with even greater challenges. But the one thing that has not changed is she will not talk to anyone that she cannot see promoting at least 2 levels. But not only that, but delivering a different perspective that can support those core values and can further enhance the culture, that will bring it in such a manner that is not threatening, that is not negative, but that will integrate well with the talent in which she has already invested in the organization, to lift them up, to help them all move together, and to communicate with the other folks in the organization, not in an authoritative or an overly direct or aggressive fashion, but in a collaborative fashion, given a responsive style manner, where everyone can lift up and get better and not be threatened by the new talent coming into the organization. So when we go out and do search, or if anyone goes out and does search and trying to bring that talent or core value into an organization, it's about taking the extra time and understanding what motivates the candidates you're considering for the role. Is that motivation, both short-term, long-term, going to match with the culture that you have and you're continually trying to build? None of us are perfect. All of us deal with challenges every day. And the right candidate is willing to understand that, to open his or her eyes, and to demonstrate that ability as a critical thinker, that they too are going to adapt as they come into an organization. They're not going to come in hair on fire. Interesting term coming from me, I know, but hair on fire into bringing everything in their way. But it's more about listening, understanding, being open to the challenges, making a difference that's really going to drive the culture in an organization, and doing it in such a way where the people that are there are not threatened, where they will embrace the methodology or your approach that you're coming in, that you hopefully start with active listening, where you engender and draw the respect of your coworkers and your team, be they directly in line with you, or partnering with you, or even in a more ancillary basis, where there's not a direct connection, but they can see what you're bringing into the organization. Gee, I understand why we hired Ross, or we hired Kevin, or we hired Kim, or we hired Chris, or I understand why that's going to come that way, why we chose this particular individual to move forward in this organization, and try and embrace that the change they're going to bring. I learned a long time ago that when change comes in, complaining about that change, resisting that change, which a lot of us may do right out of the gate because it's different. Not everyone likes something different. And depending on your personality, it's how you address that difference that's going to make all the difference in the world for you. And embracing that difference is really asking active, open questions. But why do we need to change? How is it going to be different? But focusing on not your own frame of reference, that the frame of reference of the person driving the change, so that you can then figure out how can you help. Don't be threatened. Embrace that change, look in the mirror, think differently, and say, all right, I can add value to this. I see the value in the change. Perhaps I didn't see it previously, but if I embrace it, I can make a difference in the organization. We're doing a search right now. It's a difficult search, mainly from the vantage point that it is for an entrepreneurial company. It is the first time they're making the investment. And what is really, really important in this particular example is in really responding to the culture that they have carefully built. In responding to what not only their short-term goals, but their long-term goals for this role and beyond. And again, not just looking at the role in front of us. That's easy for any search firm to do. But it's understanding, and you're playing chess. Where is this role going to lead? And is this client really focusing on filling this particular role now? Or are they filling this role because it responds to longer range growth plans that they have that are going to allow them to 2x the company, perhaps flip the company down the road, or just continue on their current path to just continue to grow? And the reality is you've got to focus not only on the talent that are going to meet the job in front of us, but are they going to meet that culture? Are they going to meet the core values? Do we see them being someone that is going to ultimately take the company to where they want to be, even though they're not stating that fact today. We have at least 2 candidates that we've considered in a role like this, where on paper, extraordinary. Forward thinking, matching even on one of the assessments, pretty close to what we're looking for. But as you dig down and you probe, there was something that just wasn't a fit. And in reality, we're not going forward with these candidates because in looking at their profile and what they've done, and they're extraordinary individuals, absolutely fantastic people. But the reality is they're not the right fit for the culture with this particular client. That would be very easy to put them forward, do a write-up, throw assessments out there and say, hey, this is someone you should hire. That's the easy answer. And as I said earlier in this conversation, I said, eschew the wrong and do what is right. But doing what is right was following through and really probing and digging into what's right, not only for the candidate, but for the client. Yes, we give extended guarantees, and many firms may say, okay, as long as I get paid and I get past the guarantee. That's not good enough. We're only going to bring people forward, and any firm ought to do this, that is there for the lifetime value for the client, that is going to be there to help that client grow, to partner with that client, not just to accomplish what's in front of them today or the short-term early deliverables. What are they going to be able to brag about in 2 or 3 years? What are they going to be able to carry forward? And how are they going to be able to represent that culture and those core values as they begin to add talent to their own team, whether they do it directly through internal HR or use an external firm like ours? And we've got to set that stage today, not tomorrow, not hoping it happens down the road, but you set that stage today where you don't make the obvious choice, you make the best choice. And that's when it comes down to when understanding and investing the time with regard to core values and to culture, where you can really make the difference. And that's what it's all about. That's how focus on the lifetime value for the client. That's when we use the tagline we use, and we firmly believe this, the right talent does make the difference. Have we missed? Yes. We can count on one hand where we've missed, less than one hand actually. So it does make sense for a client to take the time, whether they use an external firm like the Cnesta Group or one of the many other search or recruiting firms out there that are good, or whether they decide to do it internally, staying true to those core values, staying true to their culture, but not only the way it is today, but ultimately where they want it to be. And they themselves being open to that additional input, being open to change, being open to a degree of positive affectivity that new talent, that new perspective is going to bring to an organization. You want to recruit key talent to an organization? Then open your eyes, be receptive, that everyone's not going to do it your way. Their way may add value, and if you listen to it, if you look at it objectively, then their way is going to increase the value within your company. It's going to increase your ability to drive top line and EBITDA. It is going to increase the ultimate value of the company from a multiple perspective if you choose to go in that direction. Should you decide to perhaps sell the company or transition it to the next generation, it comes down to having the right talent, having the right leadership, being open to change, and continually driving and involving that culture by simply doing what is right. Thank you.